Delegate number 4, Katrina Matheson from Toronto Schools Caregiver Coalition.
Hi there. I'm calling to speak about Proceeds of Disposition today. My understanding is that Proceeds of Disposition, or POD, refers to the amounts arising from the TDSB's liquidation of real property, and that these proceeds are intended to be reinvested into capital expenditures, i.e. renovation or new construction. Further, I understand that any other use of these funds is subject to ministry approval. I see that in the March 19th FBAC agenda, the staff assumed that the board would receive approval to use POD of $15.9 million to close the operating deficit for the coming year. But given the unexpected shortfalls in the ministry's funding package announced on April 26th, staff is now recommending, as of today's agenda, to request approval from the ministry to use POD of up to $27.5 million. When I shared this proposal with former trustee and current MPP Chris Glover, his response to me was, and I quote, "That's like burning the furniture to heat the house." I know some trustees believe that this year's budget process is not in crisis this year because we can use POD to get us close to balancing. On behalf of parents, let me disabuse you of this delusional logic. On its face, the fact that you have to use POD at all to cover an operating deficit is a sign of a deeply unsustainable financial position, as Mr. Glover alluded to. While it may be true that you can cobble together funds for this year and kick the can down the road, is it really wise to let things run completely into the ground before you stand up to the province? When Ontario has seen 2 of its students die at school in the last 4 months, is maintaining full accountability as a board really wise from any standpoint, legal or moral? Prior to this meeting, I emailed trustees the results of a survey that I circulated, I and others in my coalition. Many respondents left 2 detailed comments about the poor state of their schools. They talk about how stressed the teachers are, how disaffected, if not traumatized, their children are, how weak the academics are, how overcrowded and dilapidated the buildings are, how under-resourced the classrooms are. Trustees, let me be clear. You are way beyond plausibly maintaining the facade of confidence in public education. Regardless of the cuts on the table today, the damage to our schools and students has already been done. While I commend the trustees on their unanimous decision to issue the April 17th letter to Stephen Lecce, the truth is that letter was too easy to ignore because Stephen Lecce did ignore it. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that Lecce has not responded to the April 17th letter, nor has the ministry responded to the TDSB's formal request to use POD. When I personally called the Ministry of Education last week to request a meeting on behalf of parents with the new minister, Mr. Todd Smith, an education officer told me that not only would Mr. Smith not sit until October, but there would be no one with authority to meet with us because everyone is coming from energy and has to, quote, learn education. I'm wondering if this is some kind of joke, that the provincial government is making an absolute mockery of education to the point that a unanimous communication from Canada's largest school board can't even get a reply because not only is there no one qualified to respond, at this moment it appears that there's actually no one there to respond to it. Please, have some dignity and stand up to this absurdity. I don't know if it's malice, incompetence, or just arrogant disregard that makes the provincial leadership think that they can treat Ontario's students and trustees this way, but please do not make any more cuts. Let the ministry own this mess, especially if it is non-responsive to your communications. As I mentioned, we've been circulating this survey since March, asking parents for their views on a no-cuts budget. Presently, there are 935 respondents from 20 wards. Of those, 932 support a no-cuts budget and 3 do not. While this message from parents is very clear, I would like to conclude by saying that a no-cuts position, for as radical as it may sound to you, is the common sense position among parents, as the survey shows. We are all concerned about what will happen in a provincial takeover, but the status quo is frankly so disturbing that we simply have to risk doing something rather than nothing, rather than keep doing the same thing over and over again as our schools run into the ground. To conclude, the real weakness of the no-cuts position is that it doesn't go far enough. It doesn't refund our schools with the $1,500 per pupil that's been lost since 2018, and it doesn't pay the TDSB back for the $239.1 million in education costs that were unfunded by the province this year alone. Nevertheless, a no-cuts position is the only option on the table that takes a stand against chronic underfunding that has put the TDSB in the position of having to burn the furniture to heat the house. I urge you to vote for a no-cuts and demand that the province fund every penny that's necessary to meet student needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Katrina. Trustees, questions or clarifications for Katrina? Vice Chair Didavides, go ahead.
Hello, Katrina. So the first thing is to let you know that we actually did, in fact, get a response from the ministry about 3-4 minutes ago, or actually maybe call it 7 or 8 minutes ago. So I guess we'll be able to share some of that with the public as we can. But maybe you can go back and talk a little bit about, just to clarify, what do you mean that the current conditions in the school are already a crisis? What does that mean for you?
I mean, it means, you know, from my own, I mean, I hear a lot of stories from parents where, that are just really tragic. I mean, not tragic to the point of like someone dying, but just not things that our kids shouldn't have to deal with. But for my own kid, there's fights breaking. She's in grade 6. There's fights in her class constantly, and it sounds like a lot of the kids who are, instigating the issues are kids that are vulnerable, kids that come from, that have special needs, kids that are ESL students who are not getting the proper supports that they need. And it's dangerous, right? It's dangerous for the kids. My daughter doesn't want to go to school. There's mice or rats in her classroom. They joke that it's a class pet. And I've heard that that's very, very common. Things are falling apart. I mean, it's just, honestly, coming from where I'm coming from, I also have very serious concerns about the curriculum, but it's like, we can't even get to a conversation about, curriculum and materials, because literally I don't feel like my kids are safe. So, that's where we're coming from. And it's not, that was one of the really fulfilling things about, doing this organizing work, is that I'm connecting with all these parents, and I'm finding like we all have the same stories. I mean, hundreds of parents are saying exactly the same things. My kid's not happy. My kid is traumatized. My kid's being bullied, and there's nothing that anyone can do about it. The kids need resources. They need more social workers. They need more supports. The class sizes need to be smaller. These problems, they all trail back to this underfunding problem. And, I don't know why the trustees can't just, I know why, right? But it's like, this is not, it reflects poorly on the trustees, when in fact the underlying problem is with the ministry and this issue of chronic underfunding. And I think, the parents in my group, the large majority, we're at our end, and it's like, where is it going to go from here? Where is it going to go? There's 2 kids that just died, outside of the TDSB, which I think underscores the kind of systemic nature of this problem, the underfunding problem. It's just got to stop somewhere. And, are you going to let it like literally have a real tragedy happen and then do something about it? Or, I think we need to stand up against it now.
Yeah, thank you, Katrina. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Vice Chair Didavides. Anyone on the list? Seeing and hearing none. Thank you, Katrina, for your delegation.